Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I finally have the opportunity to work on a reel that I purchased as part of a flea market find. I was shopping the local flea markets, and I found a rod and reel combination. The rod is what really drew my attention. The rod is an Okuma Solaris surf rod. It is an 11-foot rod, pretty much medium to heavy in path, and attached to that rod was an older Shakespeare 2470 Pro Touch. Now, I was more interested in the rod, as I noted, but what I did was I decided, without doing the service of the reel, to do what many folks do: put new line on it, mount it to the rod, and see how the rod performed. And quite honestly, I was very impressed with the performance of this reel. This reel is probably a 1990s reel. It has a metal body, it has a plastic spool, and you know what? I liked it so much, and I liked it in that combination with that Okuma Solaris rod, that I'm going to take the time now to clean it up. I'll show you how to service this reel if you happen to have one of them. We'll go through it, and quite honestly, I don't even know if this reel has a ball bearing in it. But I was, again, I'm very impressed with the smoothness of operation of this reel. And, I think we're going to keep it on that rod. I have a couple of grandsons that, we take to the surf, and this would be ideal for them to use, and for me not to worry if it gets dunked. But let's give it a start. Well, if you like these types of videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting videos. Well, you can see this was used in the surf. We got some sand underneath there, and a lot of dirt on here. I don't know why the person gave it up. And we got some broken line in here as well. And I only made a few casts with it, so I really wasn't paying too much attention to it, other than to note it was running smooth even with the sand on that spool and the broken line in between. But, there you go. Well, I'm going to use a little rod and reel cleaner on the top of this with the scrubby pad. And while we get back to that subscription, I work on all kinds of fishing reels. Today I'm working on a saltwater reel that's perfect for surf casting. Pairs nicely with that 11-foot rod. Tomorrow I might work on a pond reel. We just never know, whatever comes into my shop. And on occasion there are some reels that I find at flea markets and that I want to give a second chance, and you'll see me work on those as well. That's one of the ones kind of we're working on today. As long as I got that rod and reel cleaner on a little kitchen scrubby, we might as well take care of the dirt on the button as well. The rod and reel cleaner is Penn Rod and Reel Cleaner. It's available online from multiple sources. And I just find these little kitchen scrubbies have just enough abrasion in them, if you will, scratch power, if you will, without scratching, to take off the film and the dirt and that accumulates. We'll take care of the drags at the end of this, but for now I just wanted to get started here. All right, we have 3 screws that are holding the side plate on. We have a reel that the handle is kind of telling us it hasn't been lubricated in a while, so a little shot of some penetrating on oil just quiets that right down. Check when you turn your reel if the side case button is not turning. Generally it means that this is a screw off handle, screw on, screw off. Try, if you run into any resistance, well, this one's coming off easy. If you run into any resistance, take that button off and check to make sure there's not a through screw hiding under that button. There's several manufacturers that will do that, so just don't force it if it's not unscrewing easily. Just go ahead and make sure that there isn't a tie-down screw on the back side. All right, I've used that penetrating oil again just to hold that up. There's a little junction there for the collapsible handle, and I'll use the kitchen scrubby again to take care of business here. A lot of times on these reels you will see that the paint has deteriorated on the handles, and particularly if it's used in salt water, you'll see all the bubbling of the paint. And this one's in excellent condition. And again, surprised at how that turns nice and easy without screaming at you just because of a little bit of penetrating oil. All right, this case is going to come off without removing the rotor. I am going to check to make sure that I put the anti-reverse into override, because when I go to remove the gears, I'm never quite sure how that anti-reverse is set. And if I don't know how that anti-reverse is set, I don't want to risk popping it off. We should be able to remove the 3 side plate screws now with a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm using a number 1 Phillips head screwdriver. When I take my pieces and parts off, they go into a parts tray. I use a fast food container, or at least I have been for a while now. As soon as that one breaks or whatever happens to it, I'll go replace it with something. My system of organization, well, I call it organized chaos. I take the screws, pieces and parts off, I place them into the tray. That tray has a lot of corners in it, so I generally put my pieces in different corners based on sub-assembly. There's a lot of different ways to organize your pieces and parts. I just encourage you to find the one that's comfortable for you. Those 3 are off. Let's go find out if we got ball bearings or if we got bushings in this one. We got bushings in this one, a metal case and bushings. I'll tell you what, this is a very smooth reel for bushings on the main gear. Again, I'm going to make that pretty. It's interesting to note that all of the badging, the decals and the like, have stuck well. You can see it's clean on the inside. We'll go ahead and put that in. And then we can walk this down. So when I was fishing this, I only made a few casts just to see how it would perform, but it did seem to be a little dry. You can kind of tell. We're going to remove that screw that is in the crosswind block, or the oscillation slider. Various manufacturers call it different things. Remove that screw. It's a small one. And just make sure you have a safe place to keep that. Hold your finger on the crosswind block and pull out on that. Well, I got to say, I'm delighted that I paid $30 for the rod and the reel. I did look up the cost of the rod on one of the sites, and that rod is about a $90 rod, so I certainly got my money's worth, but I think I got a bonus here. This one is an older reel, but my gosh, this thing can fish on forever. You can see by today's standards, you will not find an oscillation slider that thick and overbuilt. Big gear. I don't know what the gear ratio is on this. I guess it's probably on the side plate somewhere. 4.4 to 1. That's a big gear, but also you have a big gear on your rotor as well, the pinion gear. This should pull out now. Again, we've released that anti-reverse. This has got an unusual anti-reverse setup to it. Notice that there is a hook claw here, and on the back you're going to have an alleyway here where that claw is going to ride right in here. How do you match them up? Well, there's a hole or a window in that main gear to see through. So you can what we will do when we go to realign, we'll make sure that we can see that groove through the window, and then we will aim for the hook here, and that should set everything up the right way. All right, we got some cleaning to do, so I'm going to use the penetrating oil to get the grease out of the inside of the main gear. You can see there's no grease in the teeth itself. That's because centrifugal force has thrown off what grease there is. Whatever grease was in there probably evaporated, and well, that's why it's running a little bit noisy. Same thing here. You have no grease in that pinion gear at the moment. And we have a bushing in the back. Now, a lot of people think that the bushing is a cheap response to avoiding a burring. Tell you what, these older machined bushings that were made of brass, I don't know if this is brass or some other material, you know what, they're just as good as the the bearings. You could hot rod this reel if you want. You could find the bearings that match up to the dimensions of that bushing. You could replace it. But there's a lot of reels out there, like the Daiwa Silver Series reels, that rely on bushings, and there is nothing wrong with them. Bushings are, well, they get a bad reputation because a lot of them these days have been plastic, or use low-grade metals, or even use the case as a bushing. And, well, those reels from time to time disappoint. And, well, they give the whole design and the whole word bushing kind of a bad name, if you will. Well, we've cleaned all of that up. We're going to re-grease that. You want to check the teeth both on that main gear and on this oscillation gear. Again, there's nothing in there that's crowded at all. Check the back end as well. I just noticed as I picked this up that we have a little bit of grease right on that shoulder of the eccentric. We'll get rid of that. Now let's just put those off to the side for a moment. We're going to come up top now. That is one long extension out of the rotor cap here. Kind of an odd one, but we'll take care of that. You want to find your deep socket because you're not going to be able to reach inside that cup with that lip that we have here. Find your deep socket. Looks to be a 14 millimeter, I think, because the 13 didn't fit. And I keep my tools right next to my bench here so that when I do need one of these, well, that's loose. I don't even need my ratchet to get that free. Let's remove the rest by hand. And let's see if we have a bushing or a bearing up top here. Well, we have a bearing up here. So we do have one bearing in this reel. Now, I've seen a lot of reels that say, you know, one ball bearing, and you kind of shy away from them. And as I mentioned, the more modern ones, well, the more modern ones just kind of do it an injustice. There's plastic bushings or something else in there that, well, it just makes you get more concerned. These little two washers will belong on the back here. This is your bail trip. Your bail trip is going to hit this ramp right here. Well, it's a good thing that we took the rotor off. A lot of people would just jump in there and smear some grease on the inside of this and call it serviced. I don't like to do that. I like to take the whole reel apart, regardless of whether I'm using it or it's a customer's reel. I like to take the whole thing apart because, well, you just saw when we first opened up this reel, there was broken line inside. And you won't know that unless you take pieces and parts off the reel. I'm going to leave these pieces here. And there's two screws holding the collar for this pinion gear on, and it's holding the bearing on. Well, I'm not sure what a Pro Touch means. If anybody has any ideas, you can leave that in the comment section. It's named Pro Touch, as if a pro and an individual have a different touch to their reel. I don't, got me. Just like the other one, very dry. Use a bristle brush or something if you see that there's just a little bit of accumulated dirty greases and the like, knock them out. This is what we call pot metal. It's not a fancy metal, but all of these gears seem to have held up very well. All right, when you go to reinstall, make sure you use fishing reel grease. I'm using Penn Precision reel grease. It really doesn't matter whose brand it is as long as it's fishing reel grease. I know everybody's got a preference, and well, some people like Penn, some people like Daiwa, some people like Shimano as fishing reels, some people like Trilene, some people like Suffolk, some people like Yozuri for lines. Whatever it is, I think that within the reel grease and reel oil, I think you're fine with any one of them, just as you are with those lines and with those reels. A lot of it is just personal preference. You've probably had a great experience with them, and you're going to stick with them. So that's okay too. All right, I've just lubricated the teeth on the pinion gear, put the bearing back on, oiled the bearing, and now we're going to sit that back into the case. And make sure that that bearing is flush here. You don't want that sticking out. And now we have the little collar here. We're going to reinstall that. There's a notch on the collar. I wasn't paying attention. I'm not quite sure what that notch is there for. Well, we know that these are not stainless steel screws because they're holding to my magnetic clip. I'm going to go ahead and install one and then install the other. While I'm doing that, if you have any questions on this, maybe you got one. Maybe you're wondering what kind of fish it can catch. It can catch very big and very heavy fish, but maybe you're wondering something else about the reel, the characteristics, or Shakespeare, or what have you. And I would encourage you to leave those questions in the comment section. I will try to answer those for you. There were 2 shim washers that went on top of this. And we can actually go in. We can go in now and we can install the rotor and the rotor nut. The rotor nut is a traditional clockwise turn, righty-tighty arrangement. Just got to get it started. And if you're having trouble getting the nut started, just be patient. Sometimes the threads want to start cross-stripping, and if you don't pay attention to it, or if you try to wrench it down rather than have it turn relatively easily, then you might find yourself in trouble. Okay, I tighten it as much by hand as I can, so the final tightening piece I'm going to use the ratchet for. Give it a spin. That's spinning nice and easy, so that's exactly what it should be doing. If you want to test the bail now, you can. There you go, just flips right over. I noticed when I put the line on it, took it fishing, and there was no problem at all with that bail. All right, internally the gears then, we're going to start with the back one. We have an oscillation gear. We've cleaned that up. We've checked the teeth. A little bit of grease onto the back slide and into the hole where it's going to ride on the stud. After you've finished greasing up that oscillation gear, place that onto the stud. Next up is your oscillation slider. This is one of those places where I like to tell you you should have taken pictures. I'll tell you now. You need to know where the what the orientation is of the crosswind block. Does it belong this way or this way? It belongs this way. One of the ways you can tell is there's a little slant on the top here that's set there for clearance against the main gear. All right, place the block in. Finish the greasing on your main gear. Make sure you get some on the drive gear in the back. Find your eccentric block here. Make sure that the groove is facing that window. And then take your main gear, install, look through the window, and make sure that that little stud on that anti-reverse arm is in that slot. With that in place, you can put the cover back on. Oops, not yet. Oops, that was an oops. All right, we want to take our axle shaft next. Slide that in. Slide that into the crosswind block. And then make sure when you're sliding that into the crosswind block that you get the alignment with the hole for that tie-down screw. Go to your parts tray, find that tie-down screw. Make sure you install that. Okay, if you want to now, you can take a spin with this. Make sure that it's all kind of spinning the right way and things are moving and moving very nicely. We have our case that installs next. When you install that case, make sure you get a nice crisp sound just like that. Make sure there are no gaps in the side plate at all. And in this case, we had 3 screws that hold that down. Those are the first screws we took off. Last screws back on. And I can see that this reel really never got a lot of use. That's for sure. One of the things I can tell is I have the plastic protection right here from that side plate. So they never even took that off. It's like when you go to a flea market and you find a reel, it's still got the rod and reel combination. It's still got the plastic zip tie on. It's holding the reel to the rod. You know that one wasn't used much because, well, it's uncomfortable to fish with it. But from time to time you do find them that way. Oh, you know, somebody bought one of those, thought that it should stay on, started fishing, it got blisters, and decided it wasn't a very good rod and reel. You never know. All right, third one goes on. Make sure they're all tight. Now these are not water sealed, obviously, but there's less pieces and parts to worry about on this one too. All right, we've cleaned this side of the cover. You can grab that little scrubby pad. Again, I'll show you the rod and reel cleaner. That was Penn rod and reel cleaner. Just a brief squirt. Fix the other side of this. Get a little bit up top here. Oh, we know it's been fished. I know it's been fished because I was casting it. I only replaced the line on that reel. And I did it just because I was throwing a rather expensive lure, testing it, and I didn't want to lose the lure. Not that I was concerned about line breaking off if I was catching a fish. All right, one more thing left here. Let's take a look at the drag system. If there is a weakness in this reel, it is the drag system. They are relatively small drags for a 70 size reel. In this case, we can see that there is some sand and the like up here. So we want to make sure that these are clean. I'm going to pull all of these out. See what we have. We have a kind of a rubbery fabric washer there. First one up is a Teflon washer. Called it rubbery, but I think it's Teflon. I think we actually have 3 of those. Yeah, we have 3 Teflon washers and 1 sandy main top washer here. Let's get the sand off. This is why I use a paper towel, because I don't want to transfer that sand to the next project on my bench. Okay, and just take that. I'll grab this to clean out the cavity. There's a little bit of sand still laying in there. Sand is definitely not good in your drag cavity because, well, if it gets between the metals and the fabric washers, it's going to tear the fabric washers up. So make sure you get that out of there. When in doubt, blow it out. Okay. 3 of these. You start with a Teflon washer. Thinking I should have 1 more of these. So what we're going to have is it's starting with one of these keyed washers. That's to take anything that's uneven on the base and provide a good form for the washers. Now you have your traditional 6 washer set. First one in is the plastic. We have 2 of these that are the rectangulars. So they're called keyed washers. One goes bottom, one goes top. Plastic. Then the eared washer goes in the middle. Since this is the second one, it goes bottom and third one in. They sit in the grooves like that. Third washer, keyed washer, cleaned up without sand. Now we have that tie-down ring or retainer ring. There's a groove that it sits in. Just make sure that you hold it, because if you miss the groove, it can spring out, and when it springs out, it finds all kinds of places to go hiding. Okay, looks like there might just been a little bit more something in there. All right, let's put this back on the reel then. Let's tighten that down. And we'll give it a final test. Of course, we got to put the handle on. Tighten it down, make sure those drags are holding. They are. This is a reversible handle. If you don't want to crank with your left hand, you can crank with your right. Simply remove the cap on the one side and transfer it to the other. All right, here we go. I'll tell you what, for two bearings, or for two bushings and one bearing, that's a very nice, smooth operating wheel. Well, of course, we had that in the off position. Let's turn it on and make sure that that anti-reverse holds. There you go. It's not an infinite anti-reverse. That arm is catching the grooves in the bottom of the pinion gear. Make sure that the bail is tripping. It's tripping nice and free and easily. And there you have it. So what a nice little reel. As I said, part of a $30 flea market find, where the interest was definitely in the 11-foot surf rod. But, well, this one came along as a bonus. I like it. It's going right back on that rod. And either myself or my grandkids will go fishing with me with it. This is the Shakespeare Pro Touch 2470 with a gear ratio of 4.4 to 1 and a single ball bearing, double bushing setup. Very nice reel overall. I hope you've enjoyed that. I want to thank our public safety workers, our police, fire, rescue, EMTs, and everybody involved in, well, doing their job, keeping us safe, and with the public service in mind. Appreciate everything it is that you do. I want to thank everybody for watching the video. If you did enjoy it, please like it. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're still watching, please subscribe. These are typical of the videos that I do, and I hope you enjoy them. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.